Hey Pascal, have you ever thought about riding your bike for 24 hours straight?
I have thought about it because there are some pretty iconic events that last for 24 hours, and as I've gotten older, kind of I start having some interest. I'm not saying I'm going to do it, but I'm having some interest in this whole ultra endurance space and these crazy challenging rides. So there's these 24-hour races, like iconic ones, like 24 hours of the Old Pueblo Finale has a 24-hour race, and of course in Switzerland we do have a couple of 24-hour races too, certainly over the years, and so it's always kind of been on the radar. How about you?
Well, when I found out about the 24 hours of Schötz, I pretty much I almost just signed up like automatically as a solo rider. I thought, you know what, this is fucking crazy, and I want to take part. I want to see what this is about. Like you said, 24 hours Old Pueblo, reading Mountain Bike Action magazine, seeing Tinker Juarez tear it up. I was all about that, at least as a budding mountain bike or mountain bike learner, let's say. Yeah, hearing about that there's one in Switzerland, I just thought, hey, what are the odds? Let's take the chance, see what it's about. I really happy I did it. Actually, my body's not so happy.
Yeah, I guess that's the real question. I mean, of course, we are sitting down now. Finish time plus 2 days. How are you recovering?
So let's just preface this first. It wasn't just me. It wasn't just me and you. It was me, you, Yeti, and Otmar. So for a four-man team. I put in about just over 5 hours total riding time, like race lap time. And I had the least out of the four. The reason being, I went a little bit too quickly on the first lap and pretty much declined every lap after this due to, how do we say, physical inabilities in the lower regions, that being my quads, calf, inner thigh. I just got serious cramps. It tore me apart. But I tried to keep chugging along. It just wasn't in the cards.
Yeah. Well, we're also starting under the name Team Pre-Cramp. And unfortunately, Bryson was living up to the name and then some.
Yeah. Well, I'm honored to be mentioned in the team name. It's almost like having Team Bryson. Yeah, I pre-cramped pretty quickly. I'd say about my second lap. So like actual second lap. Third one was pretty heavy. And then by the fourth, I was for sure cramping and had to manipulate my riding style in ways that I wouldn't say are efficient or powerful, so that I could finish the lap. And after I came into the end, I actually had to fight the urge to, not to just collapse onto the ground from like crippling cramps. But see, the thing is, um, I'm not a stranger to cramping. I've been afflicted for a very long time, most notably while I played rugby, where I could play a whole game and then maybe 10 minutes from the end, both quads would lock up, or both um, calves would lock up, or maybe on one leg a calf and a quad, and it's just really awkward to stretch out. You want to stretch your leg straight, but then your calf goes, and then you want to do like a kind of like a toe raise to stretch the calf, but then your quad goes. And I figured out, yeah, I just had to kind of work on my strength. Um, and I tried drinking more. However, long story short, it happened again, and I tried my best to manage it. However, it wasn't that successful this time.
You also had 24 hours to race, so the timeline was pretty cramped, so to speak.
You can't say it that way. In the end, I tried to pace myself even further. Tried to do a couple more laps. Tried, and then when we worked out as well, I would reduce my laps, so I wouldn't. My frequency wouldn't be 4 laps every turn; it would be 2 laps, which actually worked out because by this end of the second lap, I was starting to feel like it was coming on again. And then with the frequency of two and two and two and two, I was able to just work my way into the rest of the race without being too much of an anchor for you guys.
So there you have it. We did reach out to our listeners and followers on the different social channels for some inputs for tonight's debrief recording after the 24 hours of Schötz. And I guess the most frequent one that we try to answer just now is why? Why on earth would you sign up for a 24-hour race? And I guess the simple answer to that is, well, why not? And I think that's the approach that we took. And I think we were pretty stoked that we managed to get a team of 4 together. I think team of 4 is kind of that happy balance between, it's a solid effort. You're, let's say on average, you're riding 6 hours, but on the other hand, you do get some decent rest, and it's not like full on 24-hour slog. So it's kind of a nice happy spot. There were also other team formats. You could do a team of 2, up to a team of 8, mixed teams, whichever way you want to do that. We were a team of 4 males, and yeah, I think it was one of those situations where Bryson texted me and was like, "Dude, have you ever done a 24-hour race?" I was like, "No." I was like, "Well, there is this one in Schötz. How about that?" I was like, "Yep, sounds like a terrible idea. Why don't we do that?" And
Textbook.
that's the story of many, many, many things and adventures that we've done over the years. And the same it was with this one. We're also really stoked that we got some really cool inputs for the night, and we're trying to answer all of those um, as efficiently as we can. We have a little bit of a structure. Actually, Felix, dear friend with the 612 homemade brakes, he has a whole shopping list of questions and an outline. So we're actually going to follow most of that to lead us through the debrief for the night, and then there's some fun inputs from other friends of ours. So we'll throw those in at a later stage. So let's start with the questions for Felix. So basically, I think we start with the simple ones. Preparation. What did we do?
Thinking back, yeah, we had some talks. We tried to figure out who would bring what. Yeti brought his camper van. It's fully equipped. Like he goes bike camping and all that stuff with it. So he's going out there. He's got the tables. He's got the burners. He's got the chairs. He's got the cutlery. So it's fully equipped. Awesome camp situation he's got going on, and a wicked sound system. Yeah, I brought an extra tent, and then some of us could jump in there and take an hour or two, or maybe less to 2, but to rest up before the next stint. Otmar hooked up with a sweet moto tent, wicked lightings. We all pitched in with some carbohydrate-rich nutrition. The strategy was, just keep each other going. I think the nutrition strategy was definitely carbs, 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 carbs.
All different kinds at
Yeah,
all times and in every format.
stay carby. Also, stay starchy. In terms of fitness preparation, I didn't do anything. And thinking back, I thought, okay, I'm probably going to get myself in a little bit of trouble, but I didn't think I would cramp up so much. I thought I would be able to I'm like, oh, okay, I have 6 hours total riding. I think I'm just going to pace myself. Who cares who people pass me? But you know what? When you're in that race situation and you just got all these guys who are like elbow to elbow and everyone's like gunning for it, you kind of just like stick with the pace, and sometimes it blows you up. And that's particularly what happened to me.
There you go. And that's where I need to jump in with a fun tidbit side story. Right. So there's 2 actual side stories. One is Bryson took the actual time to pre-ride the course a week out from the race. So, actual preparation, not just showing up and hoping for the best. The actual preparation, pre-wrote the course a couple of times, had a bit of a challenge to figure out because obviously it wasn't marked at the time, and it's kind of through neighborhoods and orchards and fields and all of that, trail center. But he came back, said, send us a little map, different zones, okay, technical difficulties, this and that. And it was like, okay, guys, I think, the fit guys, maybe 15 minutes, Pascal maybe a little bit below, but, I'm going to be more like 16, 17 minutes. So that was actually, okay, fine, fair enough. This is actually what it turned out to be eventually. However, what was interesting is that when Bryson went out for his first turn, he's never done an XC race in his life. However, the second he gets into one, he does exactly the same stuff that happens at every single cross-country race, where just people go balls out for like the first lap of their race, try, whatever it is, just sprint. I need to be in great position. I need to be, first into the single track or whatever it is. Blows up spectacularly. He actually did a 14-minute 30 lap in his first turn. We were looking at the live results and we're like, oh my God. Either he's like, wow, he's on a magical day of fitness, or this is not going to end well. And then the second lap was at 15:10. It's like, okay, well, maybe he's, he's backing it in off a little bit. It's like, 16:30. Whoopsie, that's not looking great. And then the fourth lap was an 18-minuter, and then we knew it's like, okay, maybe he went out a little bit too hot. But yeah, he did actually do some preparation. And joking aside, maybe to finish up the preparation. So yes, we did actually consult other friends that have done 24-hour races. Turns out that our most senior and seasoned member of the team, Otmar, he already did a 24-hour race 20 years ago, as it turned out. But he had some really valuable input. I've consulted some other friends that have quite a bit of experience with 24-hour racing, and they gave some really good inputs in terms of the setup. So have enough sleeping spots, have enough kind of a resting lounge. Obviously, always have food. So that's why we had like the camping setup with like pretty much a full kitchen. With coffee maker, we had a big pot of pasta. We had fresh bread, we had potatoes, we had cornflakes, we had cakes, we had rice, some things. It was, I promised myself to not eat carbs for a week, but unfortunately I haven't made whole on that one. But yeah, so I think in terms of preparation, our setup was, compared to the other ones that were in the rider camp, I think it was pretty spot on, right?
Yeah, well, we look kind of pro compared to some of them, actually. But then again, we are like four dudes who probably spend a lot of time outside and have this stuff available to us. And some of the people might just be, they're just simply racers, and maybe they don't spend a lot of time doing those other kinds of activities. So they don't really have the resource for that stuff. Who knows? In any case, I loved the camp situation we had. That was really cool. We had a sweet vibe going. We could pump some beats when we wanted to. The PA system was playing après-ski music, which I don't know, maybe the listeners know that I'm a big fan. And yeah, we could chill. We had 4 seats. We were like, yeah, one of us was always gone, but we could always like have small chit chat, and it was a lively thing. It wasn't so it didn't feel at all like I was kind of by myself. It was always like I had at least 2 buddies beside me to chat with, or like talk about strategy, or talk about how your race was, or funny thing that happened on the course, or what course changes happened. So it was really cool. It's just like going camping with buddies with like occasional bike ride.
Absolutely. Maybe we should also discuss, the general setup of the race. I mean, just to lay out for the listener how this actually happens. So there is a fixed course for this race. In this instance, it was a 5.5 kilometer loop, roughly 70 meters of climbing per lap. it was a very, I would say it was a varied course, like typical Swiss, I would say, cross country racing. If you've done some cross country racing over the years, this is kind of a typical cross country racing course. So it's a good mixture of like, trail center, some kind of turns and technical features in a gravel pit, some gravel roads. There is
Grass
obviously
descent,
grass descent, open grass descent,
slalom.
fresh,
Yeah.
fresh cut, open grass descent, which was made a lot of sense while it was still dry, and not so much when it was really bucketing down. But that's what it is. Um, so there's wood bridges, passovers, um, the whole deal. So kind of what are you used to when you do the odd cross country race? Then there was a designated transition zone where you would swap between the different riders. How they handled it, it was um, two logs at the entry and at the exit of the transition zone. You were allowed to leave the transition zone as the next rider once the previous rider or the finishing rider had come over the log or lifted his bike over the log. Then you were allowed to go. They would do some random checks in terms of the timing that this was actually correct and happening as such. Um, and then there was the rider camp, which was for the teams. It was a little bit further away than it was for the single riders. The solo riders, they obviously, depending on their setup with support and stuff like that, they needed to have easier access to their camps, and I think that's why they were set up pretty close to the transition zone or the entry exit zone of the course. And the rider camp for us was a bit maybe like a 2-3 minute ride away from the transition zone, but still along the course. So you could always nip in and out of the course, keeping contact and communication with the other riders and exchange notes and ideas, be it to strategy, nutrition, courses on change courses and stuff like that. So it was actually pretty neat. And the rest of the race is pretty simple. It starts on Saturday at 2 o'clock, and it finishes at Sunday at 2 o'clock. And whoever does the most laps has won the race. In terms of strategy, you already alluded to it. We did gun for a 4 laps per turn per rider, so roughly an hour per time you're up for riding. It's been suggested to do quicker turns. I guess people and teams that wanted to, be in the first spots and had some more experience and wanted to really go for a result. They did much faster turns, so maybe like 2 laps or 1 lap even in some instances. Somehow for us, the 4 lap format worked out pretty nicely. I mean, that gives the rest of the team 2.5, 3 hours to rest between turns, which was actually quite nice. Especially seeing that the weather deteriorated quite a bit early in the morning on Sunday. Just in terms of fresh kid and actually getting out of wet and dirty clothes and warming up and stuff like that. But yeah, overall, I think I was pretty happy with the 4 lap format. I guess if I had to really really push, then I would have preferred like a 3 lap turn. But for the pace that we were going, I think the 4 lap one was pretty fine for most of us.
Yeah, I think it was. It's an endurance event, so part of this is physical endurance, and then another part is like the psychological endurance. And obviously, the physical endurance part I did not check off, but I was also borderline with the psychological bit. How did you keep yourself motivated?
I actually had no issues whatsoever. I had a brief moment of not being very happy. My second to last turn on Sunday, when the course was really, really terrible to ride. So just after the big downpour, all the open grass sections, they were super sloppy and slimy. You couldn't keep the power down, and I was still trying to push and kind of keep the pace high and keep you know keep pushing forward and keep rolling and try to maintain our position as it was. Um, and then it just started to be very frustrating on those flat grass sections where you just put the power down and then your wheels start slipping or the wheels start wandering because it was like tire deep mud and you couldn't see the ruts underneath, and then all of a sudden you would hit the rock and then you would get offline again and all that sort of stuff, and it was just frustrating for brief moments. And then I just you know what I always did for the entire race is just focusing on the effort and focusing on what's coming up and how I need to execute. And I tend to, and that's just my way of approaching these challenges, is to break down these big challenges into smaller chunks and then try to execute on these smaller chunks as good as you can, and then one after the other and after the other and after the other. And it's like, okay, so next one is the steep climb. So here I need to make sure I have my shifting done before I roll into the first hairpin turn. Okay, so I'm around the hairpin turn, then one big push to the first ramp, and then the next ramp is a little bit cruisy, save some energy, and all that sort of stuff. So I kind of kept me occupied the entire time. So I never actually had any issues with wandering thoughts or not being motivated and not enjoying it or whatever. Especially during the night, I was loving this, like marinating in effort. It was amazing.
Yeah, I really, let's say, adore your race style. You are a hyper focused individual, especially while you're racing. I think some people even commented on one of the first stories I posted, um, where you were like sitting basically in the back of the starting lineup, and you're just like staring into space. And I don't I don't think you recognize that I like zoomed into you. So I had some people who are like, "What's going on with Pascal?" I'm just like, he's focused, man.
I'm staring into the darkness and I'm starting to see things.
Uh-oh.
And I mean, you saw my first turn. It was magical. We were in third place after my first turn.
Yeah, but actually, on the brighter side, there's like subsequent laps where we were taking pictures and videos, and I could see you like sticking your tongue out or like making funny faces as you rode by. We were like hooting and hollering, making funny sounds and all that stuff. So it was like, it wasn't always a serious effort. We realized that, hey, like we can still have fun. We are riding our bikes after all. And we're
Exactly.
just a group of four goofballs who like ride their bikes and are doing it for like a ridiculous reason for 24 hours. So why not?
Exactly. No, I mean, joking aside, I did try. I did want to really go for the first lap. I mean, I was joking with Yeti for like the last 2 weeks that I'm gonna go for the hot lap and just like completely blitz the first lap and then take it easy. But yeah, there was a neutralized start, which was actually helping me quite a bit. And I moved up the field. That's just experience you have from doing I don't know how many 100 race days in my life. Um, just moving up the field and kind of moving around and moving myself into position. And then it was just, I ran out of road to actually get to the first group. And then it was, once you were on the course and with like the narrow sections, you couldn't pass anymore. And then it was kind of over. But yeah, I gave it a good effort. And I think we're still in a good position after the first few laps.
Yeah, and to answer Felix's question for myself, I didn't have any problem staying motivated on track. Actually, I think of myself like when I ride, if I think back about other times that I've like ridden on group rides or like things like this, where you're riding in like a smaller location. So, for example, my home track or my home forest, let's say, was like a smaller area. And we would recycle a lot of loops, but like combine them with other ones to kind of essentially make like longer or more varied loops. And sometimes it just felt like kind of a NASCAR, but I like that because you do the loop repetitively, and somehow my mind just clicks with it that you can just like think about two, on the next lap I'm going to do that differently, and then on the next lap I'm going to do that differently, and then you reach the next point and you think, okay, I did that the way I thought I would, but actually on the next lap I'm going to do it differently than the first two times I did it, and then so that actually I find a lot of interest in, as well as like on the spot strategic thinking. So, for example, I have someone who caught up to me on the climb, but I know that if I don't put some distance between us, that he will catch me before the down, and then if he passes me before the down, then I'm going to be riding behind him the whole way, and I won't be able to like get a good. It's not about me passing people, but I want to make sure that I'm actually focused on like being able to do a good time for myself. And what that means is like capitalizing on where I have like positive points. For example, I'm a decent descender, so a lot of the times I'd get passed by a hardtail rider, and on the descent he'd really like take it cautiously down, where I'd be like shifting my weight, I'd be like on my hips, I'd be taking the side route on the grass slalom where I knew it was drier, and then I'd cut across the wet part and take a hard turn again so that I could like get down this descent as fast as possible. And then when it came time to where like the grass transitioned onto like kind of a road, then I would like shift all the way up my gear range and put a couple big power strokes in before I'm in that tuck zone. So I could be at least up to like almost full speed before I tuck, because I know that I would get more out of a tuck than if I were to like kind of big gear cruise down that lane, which a lot of guys were trying to do, and I would just pass them in a tuck. So having those strategies and thinking them through while racing also kept me very motivated, especially like while I was on the bike, not so much while I was sitting on the lawn chair back in camp, but while I was on it, like my mind was turned on. I was always thinking, okay, this is what I got to do. Even if I know he's going to pass me again on the flat, I just need to make sure I do this so I can max or minimize my race time where I can.
Yeah, no, that's actually a good point, right? Because I think people make this out as it's like a 24-hour effort, and it's kind of more or less isolated, and you're by yourself and this and that. But it's what you have to remember. There's I think there was over 100 teams on course or in the race, or solo riders and teams. It was over 100 riders. So at any moment in time, there was 100 riders out on course. So during the race, there's also a lot of like race dynamics in terms of like passing other riders, riders with problems, crashes. Especially during the night, there was um, it was quite challenging in some instances when people were already not as confident on downhills, and then you add the element of okay, it's dark and they run out of battery on their lights or whatever it is, and there's another guy behind them with like a big Cree 8000 lux headlamp or whatever that literally burns a laser beam through the forest, and they're getting confused by that, or whatever it is, right? And you always need to react, and it's not like it's a 24-hour time trial, and that's you only marinating in your effort. It's you also need to react. There's the weather was to be taken into account, right? So it was actually, as it goes, I think until about 6 in the morning on Sunday, it was perfect bike racing weather. It was, you know, okay-ish warm, not too hot. It was a little bit windy. There was an odd sprinkle of rain for maybe like 2 minutes every single time it rained for a little bit. So you're never getting too hot. The course was actually such that you wouldn't get too hot in terms of, you didn't have these 20-minute efforts or big climbs or any of that. It was, you had short, sharp efforts, maybe a minute, maybe 2 minutes, and then there was either a little downhill or a little flat section or crosswind or whatever that will cool you down again. But yeah, so that these dynamics, they also keep the race entertaining over the entire 24 hours. And actually, the course changed a lot, and the race organization, they had to make adaptations to the course as well during the race. Why? Because of how it deteriorated, how the track changed because of the rain, and all these kind of things. So, for example, they had to make extra turns before a wood bridge so people wouldn't come onto that bridge too fast. They had to put in extra carpets so that you wouldn't slip on these wood bridges and stuff like that. So, and that constantly changes the course, and every single lap, right? So there's you have or a single turn every 2-3 hours. Something has changed on course, and the first lap you would spend on figuring out what has actually changed. Is it still the same? How's the grip? How is is the marking still the same, etc.
It reminds me of sort of like a Le Mans, where you have, yeah, just hundreds of teams and different classes. The major difference is that these teams don't work in relay in Le Mans. They're like individual cars trying to complete all of the laps. And if one team has three cars, then all three cars are on the track. Um, and what makes it very interesting is that, for example, I'm trying to do a climb, and there's a guy in front of me who he's a soloist, and so he's on his easiest gear. He's really in it for the long game, and yes, he'll move. He will move over when you call out, "I'm on your left." Um, but he's there, slow and steady. I need to put the laps in. He knows his game plan. And then you have on the opposite side of the spectrum the guys on the eight team, let's say, and they are like club racers basically. They're all there and they're all taking one lap turns and they're going sprint laps one after another, and they're all doing consecutively fast lap times. And they're coming up behind you. And of course, like if someone's coming up behind me, I'm going to give way. But if you, for some reason, like catch them for some odd reason, whatever, maybe they got caught up behind a slower rider and you catch up right behind them, you don't know that after the next turn they pass, that they're going to go all for it. And you think, this is now the race pace. And you slot in right behind them. And all of a sudden you're like redlining. I speak from experience here. That's one of the dynamics that really you need to look out for, because you don't know the guy who's coming behind you. You don't know if he's in the same 4-man team as you, and you think, oh no, he's my direct competitor. I have to hold my line or defend or anything like that. Like that's totally not the case. So it's also something to think about.
Oh, absolutely. And also, I mean, we just have to say it. Kudos to those solo riders. I mean,
Big
those
time.
are some deep, deep efforts.
Oh yeah.
I mean, those guys, like Sunday morning, especially during the heavy rain phase, they've been going for a long time already. They're like deep in the cave, and it's just they just keep crushing out their laps, and it's like grinding. They were like not very fast anymore at this stage, and I guess they're already a little bit cross-eyed and whatnot. But yeah, they still got the job done, and it was quite something to see.
Pascal, on lap one, I saw one of the soloists running with his bike, and I saw him run 2 laps before he decided to stop and change or fix his tire. At the very start of the race, that's so heartbreaking. But hey, he had a strategy, I guess, and he decided, okay, I'm gonna like keep with this, stay warm, take advantage of how good the track condition is, that I can run it, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned hardtails. There was many a flavor of bicycle out on course, we have to say. We did bring I would say, a cross section between small down country bike, I guess is what you call it these days, to trail bikes, to anorexic enduro bikes. And it was actually perfectly fine. I mean, you could see quite a bit of different equipment out on the course. I mean, I guess there is a lot of let's say ski club teams or whatever. They do like this one race a year, and not judging or anything. It's just like they rung what they brung, and that's how you do it, and that's how you get it done. But there were some very interesting bikes, like including kickstands and fenders and really really old material, but obviously that all still works perfectly fine. Um, of course, there was the odd very nice race bike around, we have to say. But also, we were not the only ones on an enduro bike. There was an entire team I saw that was on enduro bikes too. They didn't even change tires. What kind of changes did you make for your bike?
I threw some cross country spec, let's say, tires on. So low profile, really high or low rolling resistance, I should say. Made them tubeless. 'Cause previously, my trail bike was set up with tubes. That was it, actually. Just clean the chain. Oh, I did take apart the headset. It was a little bit gummy, so I just refreshed the grease in there. And
Just put some WD-40 in there.
yeah, just pretty much drenched it.
Good one.
Yeah, just some simple bike prep. It's the smart thing, just to put a cross country tire on. It's a cross country race. You put a cross country tire on it. You really don't need the traction, unless it gets really sloppy, like you said. But there are ways you could mitigate, some of the stuff by just choosing a different line or going a little bit slower or being a little bit more mindful with your pedal strokes for traction. Yeah, it works itself out. But the efficiency you gain from the tires is massive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just on my enduro bike I normally run inserts and pretty sturdy tires, and just by swapping to some semi slicks, I took off, what is it, 2 point something kilos off my bike, and yeah. I mean, it's looking at the course, it was like the no brainer, and looking back, out of the 24 hours, for 22 of those hours, you would make significant gains by rolling with cross-country tires or semi-slicks or whatever you want to call it, and not having to accelerate big, heavy tires out of sharp turns and steep climbs and all that sort of stuff. So I think that would have been the main change I would have done to any bike. I don't have a light cross country bike at my disposal at the moment, so I just ran my normal enduro bike, put some extra air in the suspension to make it more light. Well, effectively, I ran it with half the travel, and but it worked out perfectly fine. I mean, my hands were getting a bit sore towards the end, just because the fork was obviously quite stiff, but apart from that, it was perfectly fine.
And you had the added advantage of riding a bike that you know.
Yeah, totally. Other equipment, I guess, what really makes sense is to bring all the bike kits that you have, especially if you have a very changeable forecast, as we had. I think I brought 6 or 7 different sets of kit. In the end, used 4, I guess. But the with rain on the forecast, etc., I think it's smart to be changing clothes every single turn if you can. Certainly, keep clean. That's certainly a very important tip. And what was a challenge for us on Sunday morning was trying to keep warm, because it was actually quite warm during the night. I checked around 2 or 3 in the morning. It was still like 16 degrees. But then on early in the morning, the wind changed, and then temperatures dropped below 10 degrees, and then it was getting, especially with the wet and the wind, and it was getting really tough to stay warm. And yeah, I'm glad I brought my puffy coat and hat and fleece and long pants and woolly socks and all that sort of stuff. What other equipment choices did you make, or were you happy that you brought, or what did you miss?
What I definitely missed was I have a massage gun, and I mean I bought it to share with my better half, and once in a while we use it. But it's I saw some other teams have it, and I thought, yeah, actually, this might have helped me recover a little bit better from that cramp or that lower body impedance, as I like to call it. And I actually tried to use it after I came home, but yeah, my legs are still done. just way overcooked. Um, So that would probably be a piece of tech that I would bring next time. Actually, it will be a piece of tech that I bring next time. Yeah, I followed as you said. I brought plenty of clothes. I used half of it, let's say, just because my frequency of riding was actually less than expected, mostly due to that. I was prepared for the cold. That was no problem. Prepared for the rain. That was no problem. And actually, it's a welcome addition. I felt that it gave us a little bit of extra challenge, and I could see in some people's eyes that, because the day was like so sweet, and then it started to turn. I think a lot of the feelings just across the entire race course was just like, ah, dang, like it was so nice, and now it's like probably the worst condition you can ask for, like sideways rain, heavy rain, then light rain, then heavy rain, and then the wind on and off, and but actually, like, like you've seen me before, like I like the wind, I like the rain, I like the cold, and for me, it was a treat. I like not being hot. That's the major thing. But also, I found it really cool how it changed the track so much because they added water. Then you have all the grass getting destroyed, and then you have, yeah, the flat parts that get muddier. Basically, like the grass goes away and just becomes mud. And I think it's cool because it gives this other element. You get this element of like having to learn a new track, and I thought, okay, maybe that gives me an advantage because I'm open to learning the conditions as they change, and I'm not expecting them to be always great. I'm not expecting my performance to be extra special. So maybe that change gives me somehow an advantage. I don't know. But anyways, I found it very interesting, especially the downhill grass slalom, especially the fighting the cramps, because as you get stuck in the mud, it's another little force on your muscles, right? You're not just like trying to pump your legs, but like the bike's trying to pump you now. So yeah, that was a nice touch, even though it was like not that great. I want to ask you, did you, or actually Felix wants to ask you, did you have any strange thoughts while riding?
No, not really. I mean, it actually all for me it was. I mean, I didn't have a plan per se because I don't have any prior experience to go by. So my personal strategy was to, you know, ride a decent pace that I know I can sustain. I want to be consistent, so I don't want to, have like always super fast first laps and then completely collapse. So I wanted to keep the pace consistent throughout every single turn. So maybe 20, 30 seconds of difference between the laps. Which obviously sometimes there is traffic and you get caught behind and you need to wait and all that sort of stuff that happens. But overall, I wanted to keep the effort, certainly for my sensation. I want to keep the effort consistent. No, as I said earlier, I mean the only time I had like this is not great was when Sunday morning when it started raining. Actually, I prior to that I had like probably the nicest turn of all, which is the one that happens just as the sun starts peeking over the horizon. So
Mm,
when as they always say, as the saying goes, right? It's always darkest before dawn, and
hmm.
I can attest to that. That this is actually true. And I thought about this as I was writing, and it was like, huh, is this really now what they're saying? Because now it's like, dang, it's like pitch black, and you can just see the lights moving around the course and distance, and obviously you see your own light, and you're focused on your effort, and then all of a sudden, like the next lap, all of a sudden you see that glimmer of light coming from the east, and then the next lap it's getting brighter again, and so there's this nice blue sky, and
Hmm.
so that was really really a lovely moment, and then unfortunately the next turn it
The
was a
heavens
pretty
opened.
pretty pretty complete washout. And I think Otmar, who went right after me, he even started his turn without a raincoat, and he was caught in the worst downpour of the entire 24-hour period,
Yeah, yeah,
and that was pretty terrible.
yeah. It was like short of flood. It was really bad.
Did you have any strange thoughts?
I didn't. I had a little bit of a hiatus because of my cramp. We decided to take an extra little longer break for me. When I got out, it was about 2 a.m. or somewhere around there. And it was really cool to do a night ride again because I haven't done night riding in a long time. And I used to do it religiously back in Canada. Um, I mean, when it was winter months, let's say, not so much during the summer because you get enough riding in during the day. But it was a great feeling, and I used to love riding at night, and it was really cool. You see like the string of lights along the hillside and up along in front of you and all that stuff. So that was a really cool moment, and I did see like a little sliver of light at the very far end, but maybe that was even just like another event going on over the side of the hill. Who knows? Maybe it was a farmhouse with the lights on. In
Or
any
the aliens are coming after all.
True. In any case, I didn't have like strange thoughts, but I did have a song riding through my head all the time, and that is probably not well known, but it's I listen to like a random playlist on Spotify called Sheep Andas, and there's a song called Rudiger by the Holy Santa Barbara, and it just has like this like tribal beat. It's like boom tsiga boom tsiga, and that just went through my head. And the lyrics are uh, Rudiger nicht so tief, and translated is actually don't I guess Rudiger is his name, but don't go so deep. And that's pretty much what was in my mind. The whole rest of the ride was like, Bryson, calm yourself. Don't go so deep. Ride at your level. Ride at where you can make sure you're not cramping at the end of number two.
But I guess Felix also wants to know any regrets?
Yeah, for myself, obviously going too deep on the first lap. Um, Other than that, no. What about you?
No, no, for me neither. I mean, it was really the I guess the cool experience that we set out to have, and I guess the only thing because people have to know this is kind of like the annual big event in that village or town, and so it's like big festival. There's like music. There's the festival
Food trucks.
main area, street food festival. There's music pumping pretty much all the way through the
I think
night.
there was
There
like a dance
is
or something like that,
there was
like a
some
party.
kind of rock group or rap group or whatever it was playing in the local gym or whatever it
Flying
is,
Metal
and
was
then
there. They're doing a show.
Flying Metal was
That was
there.
cool.
There was a party tent out on the course, which is like so random. But I think these things, they if I think back to breaking down the course into little segments and focusing on those efforts, and then it was always on that longish climb towards that party tent. I was always like, okay, so push until the party tent, and then there's the beat going, and then stay with the beat, and then push through, and all that sort of stuff. So it was cool to have that variety out on course, right? Because even in the middle of the night, it's when you're just there all by yourself in some instances, and it's let your mind wander for a second every once in a while, and then you're like, okay, that those kind of things, they bring you back into it, and it's like, oh, okay, now I'm here. Now that next thing is this, and then you're focused again. So I thought that's really cool and really helpful. And I guess those guys, they must have been going hard.
They're the real heroes here.
They're the real
They
heroes.
partied the whole time that we rode. Like that's
And I
harder,
guess
actually.
they only
I
packed it
took
in at like
breaks.
when it rained sideways on Sunday morning. That's when they packed in the tent because I think they were worried about their sound system.
Yeah,
That
true. Yeah,
was really cool.
yeah. Kudos to them too. They kept
So
it
I guess
going.
in terms of regrets, I guess the only regret overall is that when we set out to go to this event, we were thinking of like, okay, you mingle with the other teams, you have a little bit of banter between the different camps. Maybe you go get to see a show or whatever. But I guess we figured out pretty quickly that this effort requires our full attention and dedication, and there is no time for partaking at the festival or mingling too much or creating recording or whatever that we set out to do during the day, but we packed that in pretty quickly and gave it a full effort for the race.
Mm. Yeah, but it sounds like you have a regret, and that's you rode too hard and didn't party hard enough. One for the next one,
Well,
huh?
yeah, maybe for the next one, but yeah, no, it was cool, and I thought it was a really really nice touch. Sunday, whatever, an hour before the race end, when the race director came around the entire camp to check in on everyone. It's like, have you are you having a good time? Any problems? This and that. Shaking your hand. Kind of. It was a really nice touch.
Mm-hmm.
And overall the entire festival was like, or the entire race was organized really really well. I mean, they had their stuff together. That's for sure.
And absolutely worth doing again, or for the first time for anybody.
Let's not go too fast.
Okay.
Let's not go too fast because Felix, he has one more. He
Ah,
has one more, and I guess we're gonna abbreviate it because we're gonna translate it loosely and abbreviate it slightly. He wants to know what was the first the first thing that we did when we finished, and yeah, so he was wondering if we went straight to the toilet. That was putting it mildly. So, what was the first thing you did after the race?
what did I do? Well, I was second last, and then I handed it off to you. Then you put it in a quick 3, and basically I came back to the camp after my stint, changed my clothes, kind of gathered stuff quickly. Had already washed my bike. Then the three of us, Otmar, Yeti, and I went to the finish line. Saw you come across. I think that's what I did.
Yeah, it was pretty anticlimactic
Yeah.
actually, because we all had our things to get to. So I had to drive to get my kids and drive to Basel and then back to Zurich, and which is obviously a great experience with grand total of 0 sleep in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, was
And Yeti and Otmar, they needed to get home. You needed to get home. So it's kind of we packed up pretty quickly, and then that was it.
There you go. That's one of the regrets. I regret we didn't just hang out for a little bit later. Yeah, I don't know. I guess the whole atmosphere and mood didn't lend to it. So, but maybe it's something you can plan to the next time.
I guess everyone was just pretty done with the entire thing and wanted to get home. So
that's a big part of it. It's kind of like, we made it. We did this. What do we do now? I guess we go back to our normal lives.
Yeah.
After such an outrageous, effort. Sure, makes sense.
All right. Cool. Right. So then we have some other inputs. Obviously a bit more funny ones. So Ollie, he wants to know, Bryson, did you hallucinate and see Pascal offering a bag of Haribos only to find out that you were talking to a tree?
Short answer, yes. Thank you, Ollie, for asking. How about you, Pascal? Did you see yourself offering a bag of Haribos?
Well, I did bring a bag of Haribos, but it was all just sitting back in camp. No, I think the coming to the hallucinations. I think the key difference with this event compared to some more of the ultra events, like in the running space or also the cycling and bikepacking space and stuff like that, is that it's not a continuous effort, right? So it's not Colorado Trail where you're going for 4 days nonstop, hopefully, or it's not some of those crazy trail runs, the 100-milers or whatever it is, where you nonstop running for I don't know how many hours even, and there people obviously they start hallucinating and seeing things, and which is obviously can be very very dangerous. Certainly in the high alpine and in the wilderness. But in this instance, where I guess the longest turn that I have done was the first one, which is an hour 5, I think. And so the longest I've been out is roughly an hour. The longest the other guys have been out is also an hour 15, maybe an hour 20 in some instances when it was really wet. So you always have effort break, effort break, effort break. So and then even we had the sweet setup with the dedicated sleeping tent, or the cramping tent as it was first known, and then it progressed to the farting tent. We leave that for another day. Um, you could actually lie down and get close your eyes and try to zone out for a little bit, so that actually helps, right? So yeah, in terms of hallucinations, unfortunately nothing crazy to report. And then Yeti, of course he was there, but I guess he lost track.
I
He
have to
wants
ask
to
this one to
know.
you though. I
Yeah.
don't think this question is for me. I think this was for you.
Uh-huh.
So Pascal, Yeti wants to know how much cramping actually happened.
Well, I can from myself I have to say it was zero. I know
Oh,
from you there was quite a lot. um and I think, and okay, maybe one more funny tidbit in the experience from the
so
day.
we can talk about the cramping tent.
We can
Okay,
talk
okay.
about the cramping tent. And the the cramping tent came to its name because Bryson, after his mega effort, where he nearly put himself into a crampoma, he retreated to his tent to lie down and find some magical fitness and muscle tension, or a lack thereof, let's put it that way, to continue on with the day. But unfortunately, it turns out that he cramped so hard that he couldn't actually get off the ground anymore. And when we called him to say, "Hey, Bryson, it's time for your turn. You should get ready. You should come out of the tent." And he was just like, "I can't. I'm cramping." And that's when we quickly had to adapt the strategy slightly, because you were literally stuck in that tent cramping for 2 hours and could not move,
Yeah, that's rough.
which is pretty rough.
I don't wish
But
that on
then
worst enemy.
it continued to be the cramp tent, because Otmar, who until that stage has not had any issues with cramps, he went for a lie down in the tent, and then when he tried to get up, he started cramping too.
Yeah.
So
I had
therefore
enough. I just left it in there.
that's why it is the the cramping tent. But yeah, for me, zero cramping. I guess Otmar just this one cramp when he was in the tent. So it's all on you,
Yeah.
Mister Cramponia.
So to answer Yeti's question, I could answer it based on hours of cramping. I could answer it based on number of areas or muscle groups cramping.
Let's give it as our estimate and the muscle group estimate.
Well, I'd say about 22 hours I cramped. 1.5 hours of pre-cramp,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
yeah,
So that leaves half an hour of not cramping.
yeah, yeah.
That's pretty good going.
And then it's been what, more than 48 hours since our race, so about that of post cramping.
Okay. That's a solid effort, I
Yeah,
would say.
yeah. I mean, I went all out. It's
Mm. And in terms of muscle groups,
calf. I guess lower or no, I'd say the full quad. I'd say it was really concentrated above the knee on my quads, but the entire quad is sore. Um, the full calf is sore. They're really tender. They feel like jelly, and then like the inner thigh area. So as I mean, I've already said this before, but I'll recap. At some stage in the race, actually at several stages in the race, all these groups that I've named cramped at the same time while cycling.
yeah, which is, you would think
Oh,
that's nearly impossible, but you managed to do the impossible.
and my feet. So I guess the soles are the ones that cramped. I don't know if there's like a muscle there or whatever, but that's what it felt like. Where my foot wants to like bend and collapse on itself, like towards the ground. Yeah. So four spots all at the same time on the same bike ride.
If there's any medical professionals listening that can help with cramps and have any experience with treating cramps, I know a very, very happy customer that will love your services. Hit up Bryson.
I forgot one more, Pascal. So at one point in the race, when it was getting sloppy, so I guess it was towards like the next morning. Um, there was talk in the camp about how like it's possible to sometimes like squirt water on your drivetrain to like clear some of the muck that might have accumulated.
Yeah.
So after one of like the double track sections of the course where I started to feel a little bit crunchy, I just reached down for my bottle, just swung the bottle back behind me, took a quick look so I aimed properly and shot it onto my cassette. And I was spinning basically at this point to try to get as much water contact as possible. And as I did this, I don't know, maybe you can see it on the camera and you can tell me what that is, but like this area of like
the latissimus dorsi.
Yeah, this cramped on the right side that I was holding my bottle. So
oh wow,
yeah,
crazy.
And I had to like swing my arm back around and like stretch while pedaling on the bike. It was awkward, crazy but I snapped out of it pretty quick. So I'm grateful for that.
There we go.
That could have thrown me off the bike.
All right. Then we only have one final question, and we're going to use that to close it out. So, Bryson, was it worth it? And would you have said something differently at 12 hours into the race?
Would I have said something differently 12 hours into the race? So 12 hours, 2 a.m. I was actually really pumped because at this point I'd finally relaxed enough to get back on the bike. And I had that really nice night ride. So I was just totally stoked again to overcome that pain and suffering and then to actually have the pleasure of riding the bike and also to ride it at night. Because actually I was looking, out of all of the entire bike ride, I was looking forward to the nighttime because I knew it would be obviously cooler. And I also have a particularly bright light, which gave me an advantage. But also riding in the dark doesn't bother me at all. So even if I had
so just so people know, flight control from Zurich Airport, they called into Race HQ to ask what's going on with that 8,000 lux lamp that is burning fire balls into the woods in this area. That's how bright Bryson's lamp was.
Schötz is on fire. Oh no, sorry, it's just a racer. Absolutely, it was worth it. I want to do it again. I'm even thinking maybe I do a 2-team or a solo. Like I'm stoked on it. I have 24-hour Schötz fever. What about you?
Yeah, I thought I totally thought it was worth it. It was a great experience. It would probably be interesting to do another other venue, if you will. Yeah. Obviously the Old Pueblo is obviously a bit of a trek for us, but that has some allure. I guess Finale could be quite a spicy 24-hour race.
That's up your alley.
Depending on where it is, but yeah. So let's see. I mean, it is quite an effort, but with some planning and preparation, and I think, despite our lack of experience, I think we put some decent thought into it and prepared as good as we could. And I think our preparation was maybe 95% on point.
Rightfully said.
And with that, I think we wrap up for the night. If you have any more questions or inputs for our experience at the 24-hour race in Schötz, let us know. Spotify has some cool commenting functions now. You can also shoot us a DM on our socials or just an email on the website. As always, you find that in the description of this episode. And with that, we say good night and talk to you the next time.
Let us know if you want to race 24 hours with us.
Ciao.
Ciao. Dude, I can barely walk. I look like an idiot.
Thanks for listening. We really hope you enjoyed this episode.
Pascal and I put a lot of heart and soul into this podcast, and it means a lot to us that you've listened to it. We'd also really appreciate if you shared it with the people that you know and care about. Until next time, Skigglers.